All right, today's class talk about chain reactions. And what are we really talking about here? We're really talking about alignment. We're talking about chain events, series like a domino effect. When one thing happens, it nudges something else, and then something else, and so on. And we might have touched on this in other classes, but today we want to really focus on what this all means and how we can use chain reactions to our advantage, to our benefit. Most times when chain reactions happen when we hear it, it's a chain reaction of something that it's not always good. In other words, when people say that my day started really rough and it just ended up getting worse. You know, car wouldn't start. I couldn't get my coffee going. The coffee machine wasn't working or whatever. And then when I got to work, there was other things that happened, and somebody rear-ended me on the way to work, or I tried to go for a walk, but then I sprained my ankle misstepping. Those chain reactions happen, and they are all part of the same energy in the sense that when something starts to have that domino effect, it just seems to keep going. Now, one thing Spirit wants to really hit home for you is that any time in that chain reaction, you can stop it. Because just like a domino effect, when things are falling one after the other, you could put your hand between the two dominoes and stop that. It's something that you don't want, something that is something, and it could be something that you just really don't want to listen to, don't want to hear, and there's a pattern that okay, I don't need to listen to this, or I don't need to go through this day, and you can stop it. We have that choice. Some people just let it go, and that's all right because they don't sometimes understand how the domino effect works. And so we wanted to focus on that today to give you that little bit of tidbit to perhaps this will be able to change the way some of the things that's happening in your businesses, at home, in your health, the way you attract money, the way you attract clients, the way that your peace is going. It all has to do with the same thing, but everything works in alignment. Spirit doesn't work on time. The first thing when people come in for a reading for me is they say, if they get a reading that okay, let's say you're going to be, I see a travel happening, and it's somewhere going to be in Europe, and I don't know where. It says, oh, when will that happen? And I never have an answer for that because it all has to do with, well, now that you've got this, now what does this mean about travel? So let's more focus on why that I'm getting that. Why is it that your energy is showing that there's a travel in the very near future? Is it something that you want to move there, or is it something that you feel pulled to go there through an ancestral thing? And it is about that. So we want to be able to look at, while we're talking about children today, if you look at the cycle of a child, and it's very in spirit in the sense, a child never thinks about anything. It just, what every moment that they are going through their day, it's all about how they feel right now. I'm hungry. I'm wet. I need to get changed. I am frustrated. I'm hot. I'm cold. That kind of. So a child is very reactive on exactly how they feel right now. They don't think, well, I just got fed. I hope I get fed tomorrow or next week. They never think about that. That happens after. Once we realize that we have sort of this cognitive thinking that we can plan, that we can look at the future and be able to say, okay, yeah, I've got that covered, I got that covered. A child never thinks like that. A child is very much a spiritual being at that moment. And so when we look at those things, yeah, Sylvie, that's your world right now. Is so when things happen one after the other, it is always due to something that needs to change. In other words, an example that one person had said the stove last week wasn't working, the battery of their garage door needs to get changed, and so on. Anything electrical that opens something or that is part of your home, it simply means that because of your spiritual upgrades, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, because of your spiritual upgrades, you're constantly looking for the lighter side of things, the brighter side of things. When some things happen, you say, well, maybe there was a good reason for that. You're looking at fate. You're looking at things differently and not so reactive to the actual thing that's happening, but more like a deeper meaning. When somebody said in one of the meetings that their basement flooded, and I was almost saying, well, gee, that's actually a kind of a good sign in some ways, and not always, but in some ways, it just means that there's money coming to you. Now, in the basement is not the most ideal, but there are times where when water things happen, it means money is coming. In the sense that if you're blowing light bulbs, if your stove's not working, your car battery's not working, and a series of things electrical aren't working, it means your energy, including your computer, if you're on it all the time, it means your energy has grown to such an intensity that it's blowing the bulbs of these lower energy devices, looking for new devices to come in so that it could continue your growth. Okay? And again, this is all about a chain reaction. And it's never one of those things that maybe just a stove is not working and that's it. It usually comes in a barrage of things, like sets. Like the stove not working, now there's something wrong with the fridge, there's something wrong with the water softener, there's something wrong, and there's a series of things. It's like, holy gee, almost everything. Then you turn on the light in your pantry, and then it blows. It's, oh my Lord, what is going on? And so it's that barrage, and all of these devices are feeling your energy intensifying. I'll give you a very short story about that. I had a case where I had to go to a conference outside of Canada, and I had somebody come in to look after my house a while back. And so they moved in for about a week or so, and after I got back, my wife and I got back, we noticed that the shower stall was leaking, and there was actually a stick driven into from the wall, this long stick driven, and it was pushing on the faucet. And as soon as I moved the stick, it was starting to sort of come out. It was flowing, it was dripping. And when I put the stick back, then it stopped dripping. I said, oh, okay. And then there was other water things happening with the toilet and the sink in the lower bathroom and a series of things. And there was even a little spot where there was some rain a few days previous, and there was a spot in the ceiling that the water is coming in. So a lot of water issues. And so all that was telling me, it wasn't a 911 at all. It was just that, okay, because of my energy, and my energy is quite high, as you should probably tell, I'm very intense in many cases. When I leave and I have somebody come in with a different, I'm not going to say lower energy, it's just a difference of intensity. Okay, I never want to put myself higher or lower than anybody else. We're all the same. It's just our intensity of light is different. When this person came in, their intensity is different. And it made it so that the house could not support that person's, or agree, or align with that person's energy for that week. So, and when I asked them, did some of this stuff happen about 3 days after we left? He says, exactly, Tony. About 3 days later, the faucet started leaking and everything else. And that's the reaction of the energy of the house that's reflecting the energy of the person that is now in the house. Almost like the house is crying that we left. All right? So there's that shedding of tears. All right? As soon as we got back, he says, oh, you're going to have to call a plumber. You're going to have to call an electrician. And I said, no, it's okay. And so all I did was come back and put my hands on the wall. And I says, okay, I'm back. It's all good. And within 24 hours, the faucet stopped leaking, and I did nothing to it. I still had the stick there, so it wouldn't, constantly flow. But after about 24 hours, I was able to take the stick down, and it did not drip. All the other faucets all came in line, so I didn't have to call anybody. So it was an affirmation to me that alignment is in everybody's home, and that home is used to your energy. So when you start intensifying your energy in this chain reaction process, you get lighter and brighter and more positive, and you're just really starting to amp up. Realize that the house will only go to the level that it can. And then all of a sudden things will start happening, whether you'll start seeing some of these things break down. At first it'll be your electronic items, your computers, your light bulbs, your anything electronic, especially the timer, especially if you have a digital timer on your stove, the one that you press. Digital stuff, one of the first things to go. If it's analog and it works on electric, that takes longer because there's not as much electronics in that analog type device, right? So when we're looking at that and how that affects the home in so many ways, okay? Now, when we're talking about alignments and chain reaction, this is all about manifesting. So let's go back to chain reactions. When a person, just so you know the process, when a person is, let's say, just starting business or just a new parent, or you're just starting a workout program. You've seen over the while that you have to get in fit, and there's a need that, okay, I got to really start to get better in shape. You start eating better, and before all that happens, you see yourself as being fit. And you don't know the time, how long it will take for you to be in that fit place. You look at maybe some of your older pictures and you saw yourself, oh my Lord, I look so good at 180 or 210. Some people looks great at 210 because now they're 360 or something. And it's not the weight. It's the fact that how did you feel at that weight? This person, one of my clients, was 210 and he said he felt amazing at 210. So it was unrealistic for that person to say, okay, now I want to be 180. Well, with all due respect, if you felt really great at 210, and let's say you are 360 or whatever, then let's shoot for that. It isn't a number, it's how you feel at that weight that you feel comfortable in your skin. And people are so hung up on numbers. And Spirit wants to sort of just give you another perspective of how you can look at being fit mentally, emotionally, physically. How does it feel to be in your skin? If you feel good, then stop listening to the people that say, oh, you could lose a few pounds. No, that's their internal monologue. Don't inherit something that may not even apply to you. When you're manifesting something like a better body or a future in your business or your child that's just born, let's say, and you see them going to school, this vision, from that point, Spirit sets up a series of what we call stepping stones. You can call them stepping stones, or it's like dominoes. They set up a series of dominoes from where they are in the future, in your future, to where you are now. And what is your first step? And it is these steps that we step on, and every step that we do, we have a choice of whether or not we can go there. In other words, if let me give you a sort of an example. It might be able to be a little more clear when it comes to free will. All right. Let's say we're going to take a very simple example that you can all relate to. Let's say, for instance, that you are in line to win a lottery. Okay, you're going to win the lottery. You're going to, and it's just either whether it's in your destiny or whether it's in your energy, and you want to do something really great with it. You're going to win a lottery. But like most people, you're probably, or many times, you're probably not the type of person that buys a lottery ticket every single week and every single lottery, like you're just obsessed with getting that lottery. Like most of us, you're probably getting it the odd time. Maybe when you're buying a coffee, I'll pick up a ticket. So you're buying one a few times a year. That's most of us, okay? So let's say you're one of these people that don't buy a lottery, but the window of opportunity to win is usually that. It's like a window. It's not like, okay, you can win the lottery the next time. It doesn't always work that way because the world is a changing, grading type of place. and it phases all the time. So when Spirit sees a window of opportunity, it's usually a small window of when something can happen. In other words, if you want to be a mother, you don't have that option of whether to decide to be a mother for 40 years. You may not want to be a mother when you're 60 or 50 or whatever. So just like that. But let's say in this lottery example, there's a slot of time. And let's say for a certain week, they can carve out the fact that if you get a lottery ticket this week, we use that example, then you'll win. Now look at the orchestration that Spirit has to do to get you to buy that ticket this particular week. Just an example. You're driving home, and they get you to look at the tendency, and you're looking at your gas gauge, and you're seeing that you could use a little bit of gas. Let's say you're at a quarter tank. At that point, you could say, it's okay. I got a quarter tank. I'll just go straight home. Or you could say, yeah, I'm a little low. I'm going to stop in at the gas station. And that's what they want you to do. But way before that happens, you see advertising on the side of buses that you could, there's this landscape, and then there's a log cabin, and then there's a big word that says freedom, and then the lottery logo. And before that, you might hear something on the radio or something on TV just to get you sort of thinking way before the fact that they even want you to entertain getting a ticket. So first of all, they know you have to stop and get gas. So you get your gas, you're in line now. And now the next thing is, like the tendencies you've always done, you're going to just go in, pay your gas, and leave. But they want you to get a ticket right at that place because maybe the draw is that evening or the next evening. Again, it's a small window, let's say. So now Spirit has to say there's a chance that he's just going to buy his gas and leave. So why don't we get the attendant, the gas attendant, to say, sir or madam, would you like to get a ticket for tonight's draw? Now that person has the freedom to say yes or no, right? It's all about freedom. It could be a person that just started or even a seasoned person. And you come up and you're getting your gas, and he says, nah, you know what, I'm going to be leaving my shift in half an hour. I'm just going to go through it. And he doesn't do the suggestion to buy the lottery ticket. So you just buy your gas and leave. Now, Spirit says, shoot. Okay, our next thing is, let's see if we can get this person to get it at the supermarket. So what do they need? So all of a sudden, while you're walking to your car to supposedly go home, you need milk. You might need some eggs. You might need peanut butter, soya sauce, whatever. A list of things that you could probably pick up that's, under 8 items, let's say. It says, actually, I do need that for tomorrow for sandwiches, so I'm going to stop in at the supermarket. Again, this just sort of happens on the fly. On your way from the gas station, Spirit says, to the grocery store, Spirit knows the supermarket you're going to be going to. And they know it's 8 lanes, let's say. There's 8 aisles where the checkouts are. So now they have roughly half an hour to fill up 7 of them. So the one that is mostly free is the one closest to the lottery tickets. I know, it sounds like it's a wild thing, but this is essentially the work that Spirit has to do. Because they don't want you going in aisle 8 because you're never going to see the lottery booth. They're going to want to put you as close to the lottery as possible. And if it's the actual cash that you pay your groceries that also have lottery, that's great. But let's say this one doesn't have that, and there's an aisle that's beside the lottery that's, let's say, 8 items or less, and yours is, let's say, about that. So by the time you do your shopping and you get there, you'll see 7 aisles. We've got a few people and there's a lineup, but this express is open. And in that time, you get your groceries and you're looking at the person. This person is now looking at you. Again, they'll orchestrate it so they have nothing to do, and it'll look like they're waiting for you. In all of that, they will go through your groceries, and as you're walking towards it, Spirit sees that you're going to be walking in, so they'll trigger this person that's waiting at the lottery. Sir, would you like a ticket for tonight's draw? Or, ma'am, would you like a ticket for tonight's draw? And again, you have the free will of saying, well, nah, it's $5. I think I'll use the $5 somewhere else. I could, probably use it for groceries sometime else. And so let's say you say no. In other words, the last resort that Spirit could do, if they actually want you to get this, and they will see it, is that the person that was before you, that bought a ticket, outside of the supermarket, it fell out of that person's pocket right on the path of you coming out, and the lottery ticket is bought for tonight's draw, and all you have to do is pick it up. And so, again, humanly, we could say, oh, there's a lottery ticket on the floor. Oh, it's probably for last week. It's garbage. And you could still say no, and you could just keep walking. So in other words, Spirit has just something so simple is a huge thing for Spirit, because the biggest thing that Spirit has to respect is your freedom, is your ability to choose whatever sounds right. But sadly, a lot of our experiences and the way that we decide are based on fear, based on greed, based on being depressed. Oh, I'm really depressed. I really need money right now. And so that's how they make a decision on, and that's not the way that you need to make a decision. It's on how things feel. When you make a decision based on your emotions, your raw emotions, it's usually not the greatest. I mean, when was the last time you made a decision when you were angry and it turned out great? I don't know how many times in my early years I was angry, sent off an email, and I said, oh, geez. I reread it. I said, yeah, that was a little harsh. And then I've had to apologize, send the person brownies, and there's that point, because it wasn't sent with kindness. It was sent because I was feeling something. And I'll admit it, and we all go through that, I guess, to some degree. But the point is, it's about our freedom to decide. And Spirit wants us to be a little, if you're making decisions based on emotion, they're just giving you an alternative way to sort of make decisions. You manifest something, and knowing that you're going to have a stream of stepping stones that you'll need to step on to get to the next part, the next part, the next part, and so on, they want you to say, well, what if you just did it and not think? Don't think about what it is that you are on right now. Just step on it and do it. Some things will make no sense. There are some times that I'll get signaled to be at a certain place at a certain time, and whether the person's a no-show or the thing didn't happen, it's okay, because I just simply say to Spirit, well, Spirit, you sent me here. So what was the purpose of that? The purpose was that we didn't want you at home at that time. We didn't want you, in other words, they wanted you someplace else. So sometimes where you are isn't the whole idea, it's where you were not. All right? And so that happens a lot with traffic accidents. It's not so much that I couldn't find my keys for about 10 minutes looking for it, and I always keep it on the hanger, and it's not there, and I'm looking for it for 10 minutes, finally find it in one of my pockets, and leave 10 minutes later, only to find that I was at home looking for my keys, and where I would have been is in that accident. Right? So it's all about that alignment, because every time I leave, I have this mantra or this thing that, okay, my intention today is get to where I need to get to with efficiency, and I want to get there with safety, and I want to have fun. And so let's ride. If I'm on my bike, I say the same thing. And so it's not so much where you were, it's where you're not. And then they will orchestrate the details, the red lights, the stop signs, the pedestrians, all to slow you down if they feel that there's a collision ahead of you. And I'll send one angel ahead, one behind me, and one on each side of me, so I don't get sideswiped. And it's all about that intention. So Spirit knows fully the way I want to drive and the way I want to get there, and it's great. Now let's talk about alignment for a second. When Elvis first started, He was with Sun Records, and I forget the song, but he ended up doing a record at that. It was a 45 record. Those of you that know what 45s are, there's a smaller one, and he sent it to various radio stations throughout his city and the area, and they listened to it and they said, who is this Elvis guy? And they didn't bother because it's not a big deal. They were playing other music. And as it turned out, one of the radio stations had to do an ad for a car dealership in their local area. And they normally have a background music that they would say it, but they couldn't find it. They couldn't find this background music, and said, well, they looked at this record. Oh, I'll just throw this on. This person, and they put on Elvis's song while they were advertising for this car dealership. Well, when the people heard the ad, they also heard the song. And and then of course Spirit had to signal all these people to call into the radio station to say, hey, can you play that song like without the ad now? Sort of thing. And that's what happened. They got this flood of calls. And even then, you have the freedom to say, oh, no, we're not going to play that. We have our lineup. We know, and there's a few people in the radio business. I know Carl is one of them. It used to be in the radio. And they have a certain lineup, and they can't really deviate from someone. They just said, here, play this. Because it's all sort of already sequenced and everything. So they said, oh, what the heck, sure, we'll play this song. And so they did. And it was an overnight success. Another one, a little more detailed, was Steve Harvey. I read an article and some stuff about Steve Harvey and how he got started. At 27, he had $25 to his name. And this is after living in his car for 3 years. Living in his car for 3 years in the Florida area. Yeah, because he just couldn't afford an apartment. He couldn't afford anything. He just did the nightclubs, and he was a comedian. Stand-up comedian, a good one, and his talent were amazing, but he just couldn't get any traction. And he kept thinking of how it would be like if he was a great comedian on stage, where millions of people would see him. And he never lost that vision. And so he got to the point where he says, okay, the heck with this. After 3 years living in my car, I can't do this anymore. So he called his dad, and he says, Dad, can I please come home? I'm done. I just can't do this anymore. And his dad said, no, you left. I don't want anyone else in my home. And he denied him. And at the same time, his mother had set up an answering machine in the attic, or in a place where his father couldn't find it. And any calls that came for him went on this answering machine. Now, in those days, you could call your own number and punch in a code. If you were on a payphone, you can punch in a code. I think it was a 3 or a 4-digit code, and then you would be able to retrieve the messages that people left you remotely. You know, this was pretty advanced stuff in the early 90s, okay? And when you did that, you were able to hear it. So he says he listened to this one person that left a message, and he said, Steve, I got a really great gig for you at the Apollo Theater in New York. Now, he was in Florida at the time. And if you could be here a Sunday, we have one spot left for you. If you could come and do that, and you would appear on TV, and it's his dream shot. And after he hung up the phone, he says, oh, I hope it's not this Sunday, because it was like Thursday or something. And he says, I have $25. Where can I go for $25? He says, there's no way that I could do that. So he says, maybe he said it was the following Sunday. So he called again, and it was that Sunday. So he had like 4 days to come up with whatever travel expenses he could get his butt over to New York to do this television spot. And then, so he called back again on his answering service, and he's just about to hang up the phone, and then another beep comes on. And it's another guy that says, yeah, Steve, we're doing a thing at our own bar here in Tampa, Florida, and wondered if you could come for one night. We'll pay you $150 if you could come to this particular bar for that night. And it wasn't that far. However way he hitched a ride or got there somewhere, but it wasn't that far from where he was in Florida. So he got there, he did his act, got paid $150, And he says, well, it's still not quite enough to get to New York. And at the end of the night, the bartender owner says, the people loved you. If you could come tomorrow night, we'll pay you the same thing, $150 for the night. And he said, oh, it's all I needed. So he did that on the Saturday. Then he flew from Tampa to New York and made it for the Apollo Theater. Thing is, that particular one, with all the series of events that happened, he was the last one that would appear. He had to go on at midnight. You could only imagine the audience, how tired they would be to hear all these acts, and he's the last one. And when he got there, he says, well, it is what it is. I'm just going to do my best. And he saw some of the really talented comedians go on, and he got booed off. Like they failed. He says, oh my God, I don't want this to happen to me. So when it came to his turn at midnight, he went on and he blew it out of the park. He did so well. And he said from that point, the series of events and the chain of events and reactions and everything made him to what he is. But throughout that whole process, it was actually imperative for him to keep going. Because at one point he wanted to quit. And so when he called his dad, and this was years later, when he called his dad and he says, can I come home? Spirit signaled his dad to say, no, you're not coming home. And at the time, we would think that's so rude, that would be so inhumane for a father to say no to his son. But it was Spirit that said, no, he's got to keep going. We have other plans for Steve, right? And so at the time, yeah, it's not cool being able to, you're still destitute in the middle of nowhere. But they have another plan for him. And the only thing that got him through was he never quit. In other words, he kept going. There's a big difference between never quitting and keeping going. Never quitting means you'll never do something, and quitting is you've quit something. You've stopped something. Spirit is more a fan of keep going. It's more direct. Your energy will understand keep going faster than it will to never give up. So when you keep going, and whatever happens to you, you just keep going. If you're going to fall, make sure you fall forward. So at least you've gained an extra, however tall your body is, forward. And that way, you're always moving forward in that way. So that's one of the things about this. Spirit usually will say that the reason sometimes the chain reactions stop is because we start thinking. And we start working on ourselves that, well, with all this effort that I put in so far, it's gotten me nowhere. 3 years living in a car, doing all this, the gigs, and it's just not doing anything. At that time, he wasn't married. He couldn't afford anything. And within a very short time of him following those steps and keep going, he managed to stay on those chain events to whatever he needs to do. Because there's no way that they could make that quantum leap from where he was to where he is now. You can't. Like you can't go from 0 to 60 even instantly. They say it takes 5 seconds, or in my case with my 4-cylinder, it takes 12 seconds to go from 0 to 60. But the point is, it takes a little bit of time to get to that, and so there's a series of speed and phases you need to go through to get there. And so the only thing that keeps you on mark there and on schedule is to say, I'm just going to keep going. And not overthink it, saying that, okay, I'm not getting the reaction I'm getting, so that is my reading, or that's my sign that I need to stop. It doesn't mean that. It just means that every step that you are stepping on, you need someone else to say yes. Think about it. Any success that you get has to have something to do with somebody else. A client that will come in to do a session with you. A parent to say something that you agree to that you get going. You need some alliance. You need some help along the way. Another human, in other words. And they have to say yes. And sometimes a person, like this Gaspar person, was supposed to say, "Sir or ma'am, would you like a lottery ticket for tonight's draw?" And then they say no, right? If they would have said yes, you would say, "Ah, yeah, sure, what the heck? It's been a while since I bought a ticket. Yeah, put me down for $5." But they had to keep going to the grocery store, and then, and that is the thing. So it takes someone else's. So what happens is, when you are sort of guided to go into a certain direction and it doesn't work, it doesn't mean what you did doesn't work. It means the person that was supposed to let you in changed their mind or started thinking. Okay? If people start thinking, they'll usually think opposite. I mean, think about it. If you look at how you saw something for the first time, and then now you think about it, you'll always look at it separately. There was a study done years ago, and I might have mentioned this in another class, where people that were divorced, and then when they talked to these people after, mostly it was the lady that talked to this, and they said, when you first met your ex-husband, your first time you met him, where was it and what was your impression? Well, it was at a dance and this, and when I first sort of looked into his eyes and I first saw him, I just felt this uneasiness. I felt this sort of creepy, I don't know, it was sort of weird, but he was cute, right? And so the initial instant is the now, and that's where spirit is, because you're seeing the truth immediately, and then your mind rationalizes after. It's because it works on a different frequency. It works on how the person looks, how the person talks, so they're really behaving themselves, they got a job, and all those other logistical things that mean nothing when you don't really, have chemistry with the person. All those things are irrelevant. And so it is that first impression that is everything. And so when somebody is signaled by spirit to say, yes, give this person a chance. I'll leave you with one more story before we get into the meditation. Years ago, I wanted to be a professor at Algonquin College. I was just pushed to be there with my experience and so on. And along the way, there was so many people that said, well, you'll never get in. You need an MBA, which I did not have, and various things. I tried so many different routes, and they said, no, that is not possible. But I still saw myself being there. And so I said, no, I'm just going to leave it for now, but I do see myself teaching at Algonquin College at one point. And then my son had 2 drum sets, and he ended up, said, okay, Dad, I think I'm going to sell one of the drum sets and put it out there and just sell it. I said, oh, well, it's up to you, son. I mean, it's your drums. So he puts it out there, and a person responds to the ad. Comes out, brings his son, and my son and his son starts jamming, and they start, and I'm talking with this person, and it comes up where, and I said, and what do you do? And I said, well, I'm a business person, and I've been doing business now for the last 30 or so plus years, and I really want to get into Algonquin College. He says, you do? Well, I'm one of the organizers of Algonquin. What department do you want to be in? I'm hoping business. He said, well, I'm the coordinator of that. And I go, are you Peter Jones? He says, yeah. Really? You're Peter Jones, a person I've been trying to get to that your office won't let me talk to. He said, yeah, I'm Peter Jones. He says, wow. Well, I want to get in. He says, wow. And the thing is, it took him to realize, well, if the universe wants us to get together, we need to get together. So in other words, they signaled another person, another human, and he had to say yes for me to get in. And I was teaching them for them for about a couple of years. But the point is, in that time, my intensity was so big that I couldn't get in any other way, so they did it through my son. They found a series of stepping stones for me to meet this person out of the blue in an ad for Ottawa. We have almost 1 million people in our city, for those that are outside. So in other words, there are ways to be able to manifest it in stepping stones, and other people have to say yes. If it wasn't a yes from that person, you'd have to work it another way. But just realize that that's why you need to keep going, because just because someone said no because of their free will for whatever it is, it doesn't mean the path that you're on is wrong. It just means it's been detoured or delayed. But it's still valid. They would have thought of something else, and then something else after, and something else after. Okay. In this meditation, what I want you to do is think of where you are today and what is your aspiration over, let's say, the next 5 years. That might be a nice, palatable sort of goal. Whether it's a business goal or something in your fitness, financially, where you want to be. If you, let's say, want a larger home, or let's say you want your kids to go to college or university, whatever the goal is, I want you to think of that and not think of the how. Just think of them being there and you being in that spot, in your health, let's say, being that fit. And then just in this meditation, I want you to see you're at one side of a river, and you're seeing the other side as representing that's where you want to be, on the other side of the river. And then a series of stepping stones will come up from where they are to you. Now I want you to step on the first one. How does that feel? Then step on the next one, and so on. But here's the thing. I don't want you to skip any stones. No skipping. Because when you start skipping, it means that, oh, I know where we're going. So your mind kicks in and decides that you're going to skip over a stone, because they're fairly close together in the beginning, right? They're fairly close together, so they're very easy. And then there's always that tendency, oh, I could double up and get there faster. And that's not what happens, because every stone is there for a significance. There's a person there. There's a reason why you need to be there at that time, and step on those stones on each one. And let's see where this meditation takes you. Okay? You're going to ask the question, tell me the stepping stones I need, the steps I need to do to get to this place. What do I need to do today? It may only show you 3 steps, but let's see what those are. And if they show more, just sort of go with it. Don't think. Just react and make it feel right. Okay? Sorry to talk so long, but I wanted that to be very, very clear. Okay? Now, because it is the Truth and Reconciliation Day, we're gonna play the meditation that we have with the Aboriginal drums. I think it's really appropriate in that way. In that way, we can sort of get into this next phase. So I want you to take a nice deep breath. I want you to breathe in the color orange. Okay? And we'll see you in about 17 minutes. Trying to remember what you saw, what you felt. Any notes, just jot it down. Now, how was this stepping stone effect for you? Did any of you see any stones, or sometimes you'll see something else? I had somebody the other day that said that they saw lily pads, something that they can step on. Whatever it is a step. It is something. Anybody want to share to see what they saw or felt? Yeah, Anne.
Um, I was walking a cliff, like a path in a mountain with cliff on either side, but I just put one foot in front of the other. I just kept going, and I didn't feel unsafe. I didn't feel like I would fall off. So it was really nice because it gave me that feeling of confidence, just yeah. And then, of course, I saw a lot of energy swirling and stuff like that, but I knew I was in the mountains, and I knew that I was very sure-footed.
Okay. Okay. Did you walk off the cliff and you were walking on sort of supposedly air, or what was it still solid ground that you felt
No,
comfortable?
it was solid. It
Okay.
was,
Okay.
but I felt like I could have done anything. I
Yes.
didn't feel nervous that I was up really high, or that, because it seemed like there was um, uh, cliff, very, very. I was very happy, and it felt like I could have fallen to either side, but I didn't. I was very sure-footed, and I knew if I just balanced and kept one foot in front of the other, I would be fine.
Great. Great, Anne. That's good. Anybody else have any experience that surprised them or that was sort of an unusual thing? A dime fell and came back.
Funny, I just ended up, even as you were talking before you got into where you're playing the music in the background. It was I was already traveling, so it's like,
Okay. Okay.
but not in the sense like falling asleep. It's the same, staying lucid. As soon as you said, "Oh, by where it stopped," it's like not a problem. Rolled right up as if I was sitting awake.
Okay.
And just a very very calm, like you just almost like walking on a sunny day out in the meadow, or
Yes.
the back of the garden, just walking along.
Yeah, and in all of that, if you notice that there's a pattern of constantly moving forward, and just like Anne said, they brought it up first, sure-footedness. You just feel so sure, but you have nothing to base that sure-footedness on. So, in other words, you weren't getting your mind to come in. Why am I sure-footed? It doesn't matter why you're sure-footed, and you just take it as it is. I just feel sure, and when you bring that up, and you move forward in your life in some way, whether you want to start a workout program or you want to start a new part of your business or whatever it is, it just gives you that assurance that I don't know why, but I feel I'm on the right trail, and it is that constant moving forward. Now, those of you that the mind keeps coming in, there was a few people that alluded to that your mind got in the way, and that is mostly because of habit. Because if you're in a situation where you're constantly trying to figure things out, it isn't that's the way that you were raised or anything. It's a habit. And when you are constantly asking your mind to get all the logistics before you feel sure-footedness, the sure-footedness, it's a longer journey if you could appreciate that. Just feel the sure-footedness and don't ask why. It is just that inner confidence. It'll come from inside, and it won't come from your mind. Your mind needs to say yes. That's the only thing that spirit needs is your acceptance of, yeah, things are going to be okay. I don't need to know why or how it's going to happen. I just know things are going to be okay. And that's when you put your hand in front of that domino when you have a bad day and it just gets worse. You said, no, no, I'm not doing this. And then you stand them all up again and you said, okay, my intention today is this, 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 and this. And we're going to do it with love, appreciation, and sure-footedness. And then you purposely push that one domino or restart that one domino to get your day going. Because the way it starts, so we just have that momentum, and he says, oh, and you hear people saying it, oh, I wonder what next bad will happen to me. It's like, no, you don't want to say that. That's almost a dare for the universe. I dare you to send me something else that's just as bad. Yeah, Anne.
I just wanted to say that my ex-husband used to say, if I didn't have bad luck, I wouldn't have any luck
Yes.
at all. And after I separated from him, I used to think in my mind, oh, 5 bad things happen to me every day. And literally the universe would come up with the most unique things. Like my car would be towed away, or I'd overflow the kitchen sink, or like you said, the basement would flood because the hose that goes into the sink would detach and go all over the floor. And I just couldn't believe the bad things that would happen. And the only thing that changed it was when I read Wayne Dwyer's book, Manifest Your Destiny, because what it did was it said, stop thinking like this negative thinking, and flip. And once I did that, it all stopped.
Yeah, yeah, yep, exactly. And one example that I gave in when somebody came into my home for a week, and 3 days later the whole house started reacting because the home was used to my energy, my intensity of energy. And so if I would go into someone's home, it would beat the same reaction, but in the other way. I would start blowing light bulbs and stuff if I lived there for a week. So in a hotel, because somebody had brought that up the other day. In a hotel, how come when like Tony Robbins would check into a hotel, and then when he leaves, someone else would check in, and there'd be no real difference. Well, that's because even if he's there for a week, the room is used to different energies coming all the time. So it's less likely to have those energy in the walls, as we call it. And but in your home, there's a definite pattern. If you're in your home for at least 6 months or more, your energy is in the walls, so to speak. And so when you change that, then there's a definite thing. This is why, and I don't know why somebody might be thinking this. If you have a roommate or somebody that wants to move in, be very careful about roommates. If you're bringing in another energy, their energy can start altering yours, because now your home mapping system of the flow of energy used to be one way. And it's like a stream. If you look at a beautiful stream, the water's going nice, then we take a big boulder and throw it to one side. Well, it's going to move the flow of that water, and so it's going to be slower. And maybe it won't be blocked like a boulder, but it will certainly slow down. And so the water has to go around this. And when the water is less, that means it's smaller and it has to go around. That means the intensity or the speed of the water will speed up. And what does that mean for you? You don't want that kind of semi-rapid flow in your home, because then you pick up more colds. Your finances will change a little bit, because it's all about this gentle stream, as they keep alluding to. This nice gentle stream, nice. You don't want rapids going through your home. It just takes away everything, everything you've built. It's a good fortune, good health. It's just too fast. So we have to slow it down so it's a gentle stream. And so when we bring somebody else in our home, that's why we notice that. So that chain of events is big, because now you're bringing in something into equation that wasn't there before. I have a client that a family member wanted to put some stuff in their garage and in their home because they moved or something, and then they parked their RV in their yard. Well, that changed the dynamic of her business and everything that was associated with that. And she was actually struggling for a long time. And anyway, we got to talking, and the idea is that this particular family member didn't want to move out their stuff. And finally they said, okay, well, we'll just go put it all into storage. And the day that the last item went out, she started getting more calls with clients, and it was immediate, because she was telling the house, it's okay, things are going to be okay. And so that's what that chain reaction does. It really changes. So always be mindful that if you are bringing in somebody new, either you can send me a like a text or a email, and I could, if it's something really quick, there's no big deal. But if it's something more into it, you might want to know ahead of time how your energy might change when you change the dynamic of the energy of your home. And sometimes, out of just love and appreciation, you want to help somebody. Somebody's doesn't have a home and you want to bring them in for a short term. That's okay, but like somebody once said that I had this person come in for the weekend and they ended up staying 2 years. That's happened. So if it's for a short time, not an issue. Longer period of time, it's different. All right. So if you know somebody that's going through some things, have them either sign up for our Facebook page that we have there. I'm going to put that on there for you guys. And then this way you can, they can find this information freely anywhere in the world. This class is open for anyone. And so if there's a way that we can help, if you're going through stuff and you might need a little additional help or a tuning session or something, it's a little more individualized, we can set up a time to address that. And and also wanted to thank a couple of people or a few people for sending a little something last week for just because they wanted to share something. So there's the contact for that if you feel inclined to do so. But overall, the overall message for today is keep going, keep moving forward. All right. I'm going to stop saying don't quit. That because it has a double negative and energies don't know it as much. But just keep going. Whatever is happening, it has to be somebody else saying yes. And if for whatever reason they decide to say, nah, maybe not today, like the lottery guy at the gas station, it doesn't mean it's no good. It just means, okay, that didn't work. We're going to try something else. But if you stop right there, then everything sort of stops. Spirit can't help you if there's no retry. There's this new movie that I'm really liking right now. It's called Travelers. I'm not sure if anybody knows the movie. It's on Netflix. It's a series, and it's amazing. There's so many things in there regarding spirit. It's just, now they don't call it spirit, of course, but that is just so bang on. Like they wanted to get something done, and they work on time travel. And the first time it didn't work, so they go back in time and they try a different way, and ended up trying 9 different ways before that person came in to succeed at what they wanted to do. And when the person says thank you very much, well, this is our 9th attempt. Really? Because they don't see the attempts, they only see it succeeded once. And that's a little bit like life. We have to keep moving and not stop. Don't think so much that you're doing something wrong. It's usually because somebody that was supposed to say yes, they just either was indifferent or didn't want to get involved, or for whatever reason they just didn't help or didn't say yes. But when someone like Bernie or many of us that are connected this way, we see fate. There's an energy of fate in our energy. And he said, well, if the universe wants us together, I think we should be working together, and then poof. And like this person with the university. I was surprised to hear that coming out of his mouth, actually, from a university professor. You don't normally hear that, spiritual things. But he says, yeah, if the universe wants us together, I'll see what I can do. And he managed to get me in because of my 30 years experience, and I was as good as an MBA. So it got me in, and that's all I wanted. So it worked. So keep going. And just tough. The things might be tough, and just keep thinking of where you want to be, and these stepping stones. Working with this, and just keep moving forward. And I could see the orchestration, the incredible orchestration that Spirit is trying to work to get me to get this, and they're doing the same for you. Everyone on this planet has this ability. Just find out where you want to be. they're going to send out the series of stepping stones, in one example, or the series of alignments or dominoes, or however way you see it. And if it's a path on a mountain, it's the same idea. It is a path. And if you feel short-footedness, just keep moving forward and just take your time and take every step. Don't double the step or thinking that, okay, I know where I'm going now. No, it just one step at a time, and don't miss anything. All right? Even if it's a small step, it's those small steps that sometimes make a huge difference. Ones that we don't really think it's a big deal. Those are the ones that seem to be have a hidden gem in there. There was somebody you were supposed to meet, and then you finally connected to them, but you wouldn't have been able to do that if you just stopped. So just keep moving forward. In some cases, you don't have a choice. Like Steve Harvey, he didn't have a choice. He died, or he has to keep moving. So in that way, Spirit sort of had him, right? I mean, if you look at it that way, because he didn't have a choice. It's actually worse when you're doing better and you have a choice. It's actually more difficult because you have the option of saying no, right? You do. If you have food in the fridge and you have a place to sleep, you have an option to say no to anything. But this person was on the street and he'll do anything. So there's no option to say no. So in that way, he had no choice but to do every single step, and it made him what he is. And so for us, what that equates to is just looking at what our steps are, what you feel, and stop thinking. Just, if it feels right, just keep moving forward. Okay? See you next week, guys. All right? Have yourself a great weekend, and all the best to you. Stay safe. And just know that you're important. We love you, and all the best. Okay, take care.
Thank you.
Okay,
Good
bye now.
weekend.
Bye, Patricia.
Thanks so much.
Bye now. Okay, take care.